Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. This is our 5th edition of Ask Me Anything, and I'm delighted to bring back our guest panelist from our webinars, Ask Me All Things DA, from this past month. We've got Gareth Holebrook, Didier Estibals, Dr. Bill Brantley, and Tara Mohn. So everyone in attendance controls the content of where we're going to go today. So please don't be shy, put your questions in. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to ask Gareth to kick us off by introducing himself and covering a brief description of the topic he covered.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Joshua. My name is Gareth. I'm based here in New Zealand. And a few weeks ago, we talked about guided continuous improvements and where to get teams started using Disciplined Agile.
And next, Didier, if you would introduce yourself.
Thank you, Joshua. Good morning or good afternoon, everybody. My name is Didier Estibals. I'm a project management consultant. I'm based in London, England. And a few weeks ago, we talked about Discipline Agile Enterprise as the highest level of Discipline Agile. And how do you communicate Discipline Agile to decision makers and executives in your organization?
Thank you. And then we have Tara and Bill. Tara, if you would introduce yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Josh. My name is Tara Mohn, and I am a knowledge manager for DoD, but I am here because I worked with Bill Brantley on an idea of integrating knowledge management into the blades themselves in Disciplined Agile.
Great.
Happy to be here.
And Bill?
Yeah, my name is Bill Brantley, and I work with Tara. I work at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, and I like the way Tara talked about knowledge management as the secret sauce that we have to bake into the blades. So I think that's a great metaphor.
Fantastic. All right, well, let's get started with our first question. So Anthony asks, Bill, you had said in your presentation that DA was good for the government. Can you tell me more about why?
Well, I actually did a presentation on this for DrupalGov, and one of the reasons I like this is, and it's kind of funny, I was just reading a book this weekend by Mark Schwartz, I don't know if you guys know him, about the delicate art of bureaucracy, and he was talking about some issues he had with Scrum, where if you weren't doing Scrum 100%, you weren't doing Scrum. And what I like about DA is the flexibility, that it's enterprise aware and context counts. And sometimes trying to force my projects into a Scrum framework wasn't working for me, but I love the idea of the process goals and being able to build the way of working. That's why I like that.
Yeah, fantastic. Anyone else want to offer anything else if you've done any work in the government space? I'll chime in as well, because we've had the pleasure of working with a few federal agencies here in the United States as well. And one in particular, we use Discipline Agile as the underpinning of sort of their tailored version of the process. So there were some initial high-level tailoring decisions that were made specifically for that agency. But Bill, in what Bill said was really, really valuable. There was so many different types of work that they were doing, and because not one size fit all, it was very, very beneficial. So we're hoping to see maybe more awareness raised and more adoption in the federal space. Our next question is from Chloe, and she asked, DDA, I am a project manager and brought up Discipline Agile to our head of PMO, who is indeed an executive that I work under. I did not do a very good job with selling the idea that we should look at what DA may help us with. Can you give me 2 or 3 value statements that I can try the next time with?
Okay, I'll try. One of the things that I remember most from the Discipline Agile body of knowledge is there is no one-size-fits-all solution in organizations, and that's a big strength I see in Discipline Agile is different people in the same organization can work or towards more agility at their own speed. Choose your way of working. Some people will find Scrum very relevant to what they do very quickly. Other people may take longer. And that's, choose your way of working. Do not impose agile upon people. This is a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. Let them choose what suits them best. And explain to them that agility is about being able to handle change better, faster. It's not a great idea that came from an ivory tower somewhere. It's about being able to handle change faster and better. And I think very few people today do not realize the importance of that in the current context.
Yeah, excellent point.
I hope that helps.
Any other thoughts from the panelists?
Yeah, what I'd like to add to that is that I'm sure in your organization you do have experience of people having a framework thrust upon them and what people's response might be. So that method prism. So I would start with the current experience and then suggest maybe there's a better way of looking at this, and that's emergent way of working using pragmatism. And then from that lead into the principles of disciplined agile.
Yeah. The only thing I would offer in addition to that is just, as a project manager, you probably are seeing some of the things that aren't working very well, either with, a project you're on or projects you've been on, or, some of the other projects under your PMO. So, identify those things that you feel could be improved upon and start with that. Another question is from Natasha, and she says, Gareth, I am the Scrum Master for my team, and I want us to experiment with new techniques as we have been in a rut with the same process for a while. We're delivering okay, but we have not had any new thoughts for some time, which is my fault as the SM. What do you recommend we look at?
So, a great phrase I like, if you're a Scrum Master and you're running a Scrum team, the phrase is reveal, don't resolve. And a great opportunity is in the retrospective, but at any time, if you have problems, ask the team, is this the best way we can go? And always have that sense of being unhappy with the current condition, and always looking for, with that Kaizen mindset, always looking for improvement. So the team may be stuck in a rut, and that's the role of the Scrum Master, therefore, to highlight the impediments and how we could potentially get better. And that's a challenge. It's not easy at all.
Yeah, and I think as obviously the team members look to the Scrum Master, our team level coach to have experience with other techniques, other practices, things that they might bring to the team. Natasha, one thing I'll say is it's not just your fault that you might not have had innovation in what the team is doing. It's the entire team, right? We need to have that shared ownership, or a collective ownership in everything we do as a team, and that includes the process that we're using. Didier, Bill, Tara, any other thoughts?
Well, I can tell you, and I'll make it real quick. I can tell you from a training perspective, when I'm teaching new teams about Agile and introducing innovative practices, a little bit at a time. Sometimes it's the mindset, and if you can get the mindset in place, that really helps you with them getting used to the new techniques. I know Tara has the same thing with her knowledge management, when she's teaching people knowledge management. So it's got to go at the speed they're willing to absorb it.
Yeah, and I think, Gareth, you and I touched on that actually in your webinar, where if you try and take on too many changes, you've gone from maybe none for a while to a bunch of improvements. How do you know which works? How do you know how they're going to fit together? Why are you actually doing some of those changes?
Yeah, there's a psychology. If you're too novel, people will feel threatened and close down. If there's no change at all, people feel bored and close down. And it's that high sweet spot of novelty. And that is the role of any team coach, Scrum Master, any facilitator, is to always have that team on the edge of novelty, so they're feeling some progress. But you can use Kaikoku, which is like the radical version of Kaizen, but only rarely. What we want to be on is always just the rev rate at the appropriate level.
Yeah, I've got a organization in one team in the organization that I have recently started to work with, and one of the things that they have embraced is they have put up a retrospective board to be able to capture some of the things that they want to talk about during their retrospective, and might forget, of course, across the time period. And they are trying to have their team lead identify some of the things that they might improve on, so that by the time they get to the retrospective, the team lead has got a little bit more of an understanding. So we've been taking a look at, the process goals and some of the decision points and options. And just, again, we go to the DA browser tool and we're looking at descriptions and how those things might work for them. So that's something else that's worked quite effectively for me in the past.
And that's the value the team lead brings. Obviously, when I go to an organization, I'm bringing some expertise to bear. So I need to build trust and have the credibility that I say, hey, guys, I think we can do better here. Try this. But it takes time to be able to achieve that.
Right.
Yep. So the next question is by M, and it's another one for you, Gareth. Do you think it is better for a team to start with a lean life cycle or an agile life cycle?
Okay, spoken like a true consultant, it depends. My personal preference is I like the agile life cycle, unless the team has a lot of interrupt kind of work and is changing rapidly. And the reason is I do like the structure of having that deliberate start and end, and that cadence where we can stop, reflect, and then start again. But in most cases, most teams always still have interrupts and BAU. So I kind of blend a bit of both. I've heard people call it Scrumban. It's not one of the life cycles in DA, but in the context of most places where I work with small tech product companies, I try and start them with a agile life cycle and then move towards lean where it works. If they start with agile, by the way, I like them to stay with that long enough to bed in the habits and don't switch to lean straight away.
Yeah, same thoughts in everything that you said. And one thing, as far as the consultant speak, it can be the context counts.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've probably all had lots of teams that have had some interest in maybe starting with a lean life cycle, or saying, well, we haven't been able to be very effective using Scrum. We struggle to actually complete the work that we complete, the work we committed to doing. So maybe we'll try, moving to lean. Well, that might just exacerbate the problem. If you have a challenge with carryover work and work that's rarely meeting your definition of done, you do need some discipline using something like the agile life cycle before you move to something that is a little bit more advanced and requires more experience and discipline, like a lean life cycle, where it's all about, flow and minimizing work and process.
And if I can jump
Bill,
in.
you look like you were getting ready to say something.
Yeah. Well, and this may be totally against the orthodoxy. I have something I call sorted Scrum, because I deal with a lot of teams that are just approaching Agile for the very first time. So I introduce aspects of Scrum and Lean and Agile to them, just like maybe a Kanban board, maybe retrospectives, little pieces here and there. We're still kind of serial or traditional, but getting them kind of used to the idea. So, I'm admitting to that and confessing to that sort of Scrum.
That's very legitimate, actually, because if you go in with the feds like imposing a whole framework, people can rail against it straight away. And a change management team I once did that with, we just started with the elements. Within a few weeks, we had a 1-week sprint cycle.
Yeah, and one of the basic philosophies of DA is start where you're at and make some improvements, and then keep making improvements on top of that. And sometimes teams aren't in a position where even starting with trying to adopt Scrum in its entirety is possible. So what can we start doing to make improvement from where we're at? Next question is from Catherine, and she says, Tara and Bill, you mentioned you were new to Discipline Agile in your previous talk. Is your government using it? And if not, why did you look into it?
Tara, you want to go first?
I was just going to say that my agency they definitely want to be more agile and use it throughout, and have been giving us training. And when it comes to disciplined agile, I don't think that's really been mentioned. So I'm excited because I get to mention it. But I think that the whole agile train is still going, and this is like, okay, you know what? This is actually better. It's like you thought it was good, but now we have this flexibility, and from a change management perspective, it's much more tolerable for users. So that's my.
And I've been using Agile for a while, but it's kind of Scrum based. And again, we're kind of running against the limitations on it a little bit. And, watching the agencies just adapt it the way they want. They're not doing pure Agile, pure Scrum, but, adapt it the way they want. And I'm very new to this. I came to this last year when I saw PMI acquired this, and I'm a project management professional from long back, so is Tara. And we just said, well, why'd they buy this? And then when I looked into it, I thought, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. It's just like a revelation. So I'm a new convert to it. I'm very excited. But just what sold me was the ways of working. I thought this is brilliant for how we do government work.
In the PMI Discipline Agile certification workshops that we're regularly delivering, we're seeing a lot of attendees that are in a similar situation, that their awareness was raised when PMI made the acquisition. They might be learning about it through something their chapter's putting out, or whatever the communication channel is. But what's been most interesting is how we've had individuals that have had training budget, either from their organization, the position that they're in, or just investing in themselves, that have come to a training workshop. And then we're seeing that they're oftentimes asking for a bit of a break on the admission price, but they're bringing other people or referring other people from their organization as they feel it is a good fit. So I think what we're seeing is there are some organizations that are looking to DA now and how good of a fit it might be, and moving, from an organizational standpoint. But we're also seeing a lot of individuals that are taking some initiative to come learn more about it and then bring that back to their, to their organization. The next question is from Thierry, and Didier, it looks like this will be directed to you. At my company, where we do Scrum, it is not real Scrum. We really still do waterfall. Our governance area makes it impossible to do anything other than a waterfall approach. I want to invite the vice president and her director that is over the governance area to a meeting to address this, and I want to try to bring DA into the discussions. What do you recommend to plan for and investigate?
Okay. What I liked about Discipline Agile from an executive point of view, or from a manager point of view, is the fact that it helps you to choose which agile approach is more suitable for your organization in your current context. So Discipline Agile doesn't say do Scrum or do Lean. Discipline Agile said, well, if you are in that context, Scrum is probably relevant. If you are in that other context, Lean is all. And so the first thing I would do is, before I talk about Discipline Agile, I would talk about Agile in general. Why do organizations go towards more agility? And then the second question is, how do you do that? And the answer is Discipline Agile. Discipline Agile will help you to choose what is relevant to your team or some of your teams in your organization. Again, it's back to the world is changing, and is changing fast. And if we cannot react to this change, we are doomed. It's as simple as that. Whether we like it or not, I don't necessarily approve all the change I am surrounded with, but I have to recognize that, well, it's there anyway, whether I like it or not. And that's a message I would try to deliver to my head of PMO is, look, you may come from a traditional environment, waterfall. I do. Okay, but there are other options today, and there are maybe better options. And if we don't look at it, we may not be there in a couple of years.
Yeah, and Didier, you make a really great point in that, things are changing very quickly now. And being locked into one particular approach and not having flexibility to be reactive and to grow accordingly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what, achieving true business agility is all about.
Exactly. Exactly. And Discipline Agile to me is only a mean. It's a good mean. But you don't do Discipline Agile for the sake of Discipline Agile. You do Discipline Agile because it helps you to not only survive, but actually take the lead in your field. You don't want to just survive, you want to thrive. And I think Discipline Agile will help you to become more agile in order to thrive.
Our next question is from Taylor, and Taylor's question is, Gareth, you had mentioned being a coach. We recently brought in our first Agile coach, and I'm pretty underwhelmed. Can you tell me what you would do when starting with a new company and new teams? And one of our teams is not too happy with having to listen to a coach, so please keep that context in mind.
Yeah. I've been there. As it happens this week, I'm with a new client here in Auckland. And the first thing is I need to seek to understand before being understood. So I need to observe and see for myself what the teams are doing. And this organization has a blend of Scrum teams, some sequential work, some serial work. But I need to build credibility. So I'm one or two people I'm going to have one-on-one discussions with and find out what their problems are. And even then, I'm not going to be the answers man. But over time, I'm going to demonstrate, and hopefully it'll be a pull. So coaching is permission-based. And a problem I've got with our industry is many coaches thrust their opinions and solutions onto people who are not ready to consume them.
Yeah.
So I have the humility, I try to have the humility to listen first, and then make suggestions. And yes, it's listen first is the first thing to say. Be vulnerable.
Yeah, because what happens if they have tried things that are pretty standard, or what might work in a lot of situations, and it doesn't work in that company or that team, and you're going in and trying to tell them this is what you should do without even understanding their situation.
And the flip side is many people who go and say, hey, we're going to, we've been mandated, or we're going to try using the Agile framework. And people say, well, we've tried Scrum, it doesn't work. But then when you dig into why, it's because they weren't quite understanding the rationale behind it and not doing it properly. So, but it takes time. You can't just march in and dictate as if you're a drill sergeant. You've got to have some level of democracy and affinity to them.
Yeah, because that wouldn't be coaching if that approach is being taken.
Yeah, Josh, can I jump in real quick? Because
yeah.
I run two different coaching programs at USPTO, career coaching and executive coaching. And the phrase we use is the speed of the client. You can't coach them faster than they're willing to go. So when I have my coaches come to me and say, well, what's your client's speed right now? What are they willing to do? Yeah. And I totally agree with Gareth. It is absolutely permission-based. And you don't dictate to them. Yeah.
And if I can add something, Josh?
Yeah.
I totally agree with Gareth. Humility is extremely important. If you step in and say, hey guys, you are all doing a bad job, and I'm going to tell you how to do a good job, it's probably not good. But I've seen people doing that.
Yeah.
The other thing I try to do when I get involved as a coach or as a consultant is I try to avoid using standard words. Scrum, Agile. Okay, let's work as a cross-function team.
Mm-hmm.
And then people will realize by themselves that what they are doing is a Scrum or Lean or whatever. Let's use a board where we post-it about to do, in progress, and done. And by the end, they discover that it's a Kanban board. Let them discover at their own pace, like Bill said. I found it a good way to be listened to once you have listened to them first to understand what they are doing.
Yeah, jargon can really turn people off.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Samuel asks, you all had to start somewhere with Discipline Agile. Can you quickly tell me how you began your paths to DA? And I'll just start with Tara, because Tara, I mean, we've all kind of touched on this, so we can probably answer this kind of quickly, but you just happen to be right next up on the screen next to me.
Okay, that's fine. Well, like I had mentioned, I had first heard about Discipline Agile when I was talking to Bill, and he knew a lot about it. But it was nice because we started talking about, well, how should KM or knowledge management, how would that be structured or added to the value of DA? So that was more of a scholarly inquiry, and I have not had an opportunity to actually use DA in my organization, but I'm happy that I know about it. So that was my story.
Gareth, you just happen to be next to Tara. How about yours?
So I'm still relatively new to Disciplined Agile. I've been a Scrum Master Agile coach for about a decade, and I was a lean production engineer in manufacturing before that. So I'm new to it, but the thing I like is I have to admit I did get caught into that method prism of being the purist Scrum Master. And what I like about this is it gives you an opportunity to look at the specific context and be pragmatic. I am applying it on the periphery with a few clients at the moment, but I haven't got a Disciplined Agile suite that I've taken to a client just yet.
Didier?
Okay, I am also relatively new to Discipline Agile. I discovered Discipline Agile when PMI bought it. It's about a year and a bit ago. And the first thing I did was to buy the book, Choose Your Wow, and read it. It was not particularly easy, but I made sure I read it properly and I took notes for every chapter. Then I enrolled on a training course. And coming from a traditional project management background, what I had in the back of my mind all the time is what could help me to do my job better. You know, I know how to manage a project using the waterfall approach. There are still parts of the waterfall approach which I like, but what could I add on top to make it better? And I like the idea of, you know, self-organizing teams, and I like the idea of information radiators, this kind of thing. So it was, for me, it was more of a mix, but I started by reading the book.
Oh, okay. And Bill, I know you've already kind of touched on this today, but if you want to just quickly give your last thought on it.
Yeah, pretty much the same for everyone else, kind of, you know, stumbled upon this. And I think one thing that also compelled me to Discipline Agile was when someone tried to explain SAFe to me and we were trying to implement it, and I was so confused. And I saw Discipline Agile, and I realized, you know, SAFe does have some good aspects. There's some good things in Discipline Agile, but I just thought, this is the method I've been looking for, because like I said, I created sort of Scrum, but now I think, okay, now I've got something that's real.
Well, and as usual, time has gone by very, very quickly. So I'm going to just share my screen as we're taking a look at our wrap up. And as usual, I would like to thank all of our panelists for the webinars that you actually gave during the month, and then coming back to the Ask Me Anything. And I would like to announce our October lineup. So in October, we've got a really interesting set of presenters. For the first time, I think ever, we've got all of the co-creators, the current thought leaders at PMI. So we're going to start off next Wednesday with Mark Lines, co-creator of DA. He's currently the Vice President of Discipline Agile for PMI. And he is going to cover the overview of the DA certifications. So the Agile certification journey has been updated, and Mark is going to come and share some thoughts on that. And then on the 14th, we're going to have Scott Ambler, the other co-creator of Discipline Agile, who is currently the Vice President and Chief Scientist for DA at PMI. Scott and I are going to talk about success with Discipline Agile, past, present, and future. I've had the pleasure of working with both Mark and Scott for many, many, many years. And Scott and I led a global transformation of DA a few years ago. So we'll be touching on that a bit. And then finally, last but not least, is Al Shalloway. Al is the creator of Flex and the director of thought leadership for Agile at Scale at PMI. And he and I are going to talk about how to move from Scrum to DA or from SAFe to DA. And then all three of them, again, will come back and join in and ask me anything. So yeah, it's really exciting to be able to have all three of them join us and the commitment they're making, just like our panelists today from rather busy schedules.
I'm definitely going to check into all of them. Thank you, Joshua.
Thank you, Joshua.
Yeah, and once again, thank you everybody in attendance for today, and good luck with your exploring of Discipline Agile, and hope to see you next Wednesday. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.